Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope your afternoon's going well. Thanks for joining us. Well, they made it official yesterday evening. The Browns know who they will play in the opener in the 2024 season. They have the Dallas Cowboys, 425, America's game, and it is the debut of Tom Brady as the lead analyst for Fox Sports. So one of the big national windows, Browns will open up against the Cowboys to get the season rolling in 2024. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, I know you wrote an article about this. This is one of the premier spots, given everything that surrounds it, the entire opening weekend.
What a way to open the season. I have to wonder, did the NFL feel bad about not giving the Browns the Brazil game that they really wanted, and then this was sort of a consolation prize or something? Because this is a way to open with a bang against the Dallas Cowboys at home with Tom Brady on the call. It doesn't really get a whole lot better than that.
Yeah, and you know, that it's kind of interesting. We make a big deal about the quarterbacks that the Browns have to face. Take a look at this. These are the top 4 defenses that the Browns will have to face. This from Dog Pound Daily. So number 4, Pittsburgh Steelers. They finished 6th in 2023, scoring allowed 324 points, 47 sacks, 16 interceptions. 3, the Cowboys, 4th in points allowed, 18.5 per game. 5th in yards allowed, just under 300 per game. Number 2, the Baltimore Ravens. They allowed the fewest points per game in 2023, 16.5. And we know you can't avoid the Steelers or the Ravens. And then also the Chiefs. You know, Patrick Mahomes grabs the headlines. This is a defense that only allowed 17.3 points per game, Super Bowl champs. So Browns are going to go up against some really tough defenses in addition to all those high-profile quarterbacks.
Right, and the interesting thing about that is the fact that they will have a completely overhauled offense. This is not the 2023 offense that we saw, which of course they had to adjust and pivot once Joe Flacco got in there. But this isn't what we saw even Deshaun running before he got hurt with the shoulder injury. So they have completely changed it up, and they have a completely new staff. They have a few new players, not a whole bunch of new players on the offense, but Deshaun coming in there, throwing the ball to Jerry Jeudy. You know, he's got some other guys that will be a little bit new on the newer side of maybe if Zinter Thrash, the 5th round pick, gets an opportunity to play, he'll be out there too. So, you know, they're going to have to be on point as quickly as they possibly can be.
Yeah, and it's kind of a chess match. I mean, who do you think, does anybody have the advantage? The defense doesn't know what the offense is, but the offense doesn't have that familiarity with one another either.
Well, I'm sure by the time the Browns get to that opener, the Cowboys are going to know pretty much what they're doing on offense and who's doing what, just from a number of different ways of finding that out, including the fact that they know what Ken Dorsey did in Buffalo. They know what he's going to be running here. They know the personnel. They know Amari Cooper very well. They know Deshaun. So you know, they'll be able to scout it out the way they need to. I think it's going to be a great matchup. It's going to be a tough matchup. Think about the fact that they went 12-5 last year. Like the Browns, bowed out early in the wild card round. That was a huge disappointment for both clubs. So they have a lot to prove. And I think it's just going to be a tremendous game.
So Rookie Minicamp wrapped up over the weekend. You wrote a couple articles. Take us through the one on Michael Hall, hometown kid. You know, there was some pre-draft reports that were meh. And, you know, he seems thrilled to be where he is, which is home with the Browns.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to him. I got to talk to him one-on-one after the group interview, and that was a unique opportunity, and I really enjoyed it. And I was happy and grateful to get that. And I got an opportunity to ask him a number of different things that we didn't cover in the scrum, so to speak. And I wanted to find out, what about those pre-draft reports? And he said, you know, you just cannot worry about those kinds of things. He saw it happen last year to DeJuan Jones. He saw what it did to him. He wasn't going to let it bother him. I talked to him about the fact that his Ohio State defensive line coach, Larry Johnson, he's very close with him. He's almost like a father figure. and he encouraged him to see a sports psych, and so that really helped him. He learned how to deal with things, probably like pre-draft reports that can knock you down some. And so there was that. I asked him about his son, Mike Hall III, and what impact that had on, just him as a person, and really knowing that he needed to grow up very quickly, and just about being back home. So it was great. I had fun talking to him. We'll do another deep dive into Mike Hall one of these days, but it was an opportunity to get a little bit of an inside look at him.
And keep in mind, 20 years old, so very much a lot of developing, so some patience, I'm sure the Browns will have it with him as well. Another one, take us through this. I found this one interesting as well. Nick Chubb inspiring, other running backs during his rehab.
Oh, yeah, I got a chance to talk to Pierre Strong Jr. a little bit about that, and he said just having Nick Chubb in the building at the offseason program, they're just working so hard to come back from this knee injury, has been an inspiration to all of them. So to have Nick there, and then to also have Deuce Staley as the new running backs coach, there's a new energy in the running back room. There's a new vibe in there, and that's good, because this still is AFC North football. No matter what anybody says, it is a passing league, but you also have to be able to run the ball, and they will be doing that. So it's really good that Nick is helping to inspire these guys, and right now it's running back by committee until Nick gets back out there. But he's had a tremendous effect on everybody.
So the other thing that's kind of interesting, we know the Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champs. Week 1, they're playing the Ravens. Week 2, they're playing Bengals. So the AFC North gets first crack at the defending Super Bowl champs, and Browns are going to find out where they play them. The Browns do have the Chiefs on the schedule, so AFC North is loaded again.
Yeah, it really is. And, that common opponent thing is vitally important. So those are AFC North games right there. Those are common opponent games for the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Browns. So those are going to be meaningful, those 2 weeks. Those are going to be tough games for those AFC North foes, just like it will be tough when they come into Cleveland with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and Taylor Swift. So that is going to be really something to watch in the first few weeks of the season, to see how those Ravens and Bengals fare against the Super Bowl champs.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, plus some rookie minicamp observations, including the new coaches. Sports4CLE will be right back talking Browns. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I'm a longtime Browns fan since the early 60s. I live in Texas now, but I'm still a Browns fan. Everybody knows it. I really appreciate your show and all this conversations about the tackle situation and all the depth we have. I think since we're stuck with Jack Conklin, the best bet is to make him our swing tackle, since he doesn't need to try to play a full season, and that way you got a good substitution, and put DeJuan in there because he's the man. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Woo, woo, woo.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, one of those guys is not going to be the starter, and Andrew Berry said it. It's a good problem to have. You have 3 guys that you feel can start at tackle.
Well, once again, last year they were all the way down to their 4th and 5th tackles. And so to have 3 really good ones, that's amazing. And then the other thing to consider is that they are all coming off of season-ending knee surgeries. So some of them might need a little bit more time than others to get back to where they need to be. Some of them might want to, I don't know, maybe, not have to play a full game right away. So we don't know how that's going to go yet. But it is a good problem to have because I'm sure they're going to find a way to use all 3 tackles somehow, some way.
All right. So Kevin Stefanski last week had his 42nd birthday, belated happy birthday, Coach. Still one of the younger head coaches in the league. Only 10 head coaches in the NFL are currently younger. In his 4 years, 2-time NFL Coach of the Year, 5th in franchise wins with 37, 4th in playoff appearances with 3, 6th in win percentage at .552. And again, a young head coach. We expect, I keep saying this every time you're on, hoping you'll tell me, we expect the extensions to be coming for he and Andrew Berry. But again, people want to nitpick play calling. This guy's a really good head football coach.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, who wins 2 NFL Coach of the Years in their first 4 seasons in the NFL? I mean, that is just incredible. So hard to do that. He has pulled it off. That's great for him. It means, of course, that he's going to be around here for a long time. Those extensions will be forthcoming at some point. As far as whether or not he'll retain play calling duties, we don't know that yet. That remains to be seen. I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps maybe he does turn it over to Ken Dorsey, but I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps it as well. So lots of different ways they can go with that, but they could even collaborate. But I do think that, the Browns are lucky to have such a good head coach, and Deshaun really, really likes him a lot. That's vitally important. All of the players really do, and the Browns have alignment in their organization right now, which is really good.
So I know you also wrote an article, and you kind of lead into this, minicamp observations and Ken Dorsey and his influence and fingerprints, if you will, on this offense.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I think that's one of the things that is really shining through for me over the last month or so, is just how much Ken Dorsey is going to be kind of running the show, implementing an offense that Deshaun Watson played under Bill O'Brien in Houston. And it's the New England offense, basically. And it's what Brian Daboll learned in New England, what he brought with him to the Buffalo Bills when he was the offensive coordinator there. And of course, Ken Dorsey worked under him. So that's the kind of offense they will be running this year. It's going to feature some 3 wides, some 4 wides. It's going to have some different elements to it. The drop back concepts will be things that you saw Tom Brady do. There will be, spread, RPO, all different kinds of things, but it should showcase Deshaun Watson's strengths.
So the rookie minicamp is also the first time we got to see some of the newer coaches, some of the additions to the coaching staff. What were your observations of the guys working with the rookies?
Well, first of all, Deuce Staley only had 1 running back in the camp to work with, so that was kind of funny. He gave Aiden Robbins all kinds of attention, but it was good for him that he had the chance to spend some one-on-one time with him. But he's very vocal, he's very hands-on. They all are. And then I watched Ken Dorsey working with the only quarterback in camp who did end up signing, Jacob Sermon. Ended up signing as a tryout player. And, so again, it was good to see Ken just digging in there and sort of putting his stamp, putting his mark on this offense. And that left Kevin Stefanski in more of an overseer role, more of a CEO role. And I think he's testing that out to see how he likes it and just to get a feel for that and see how it goes. But, Jacques Césaire, the new defensive line coach, he was very vocal. He was working with Mike Hall and the others just on all of the little details of foot placement and body placement and leverage and all of those kinds of things. So there's a new energy. When you're in a new job and you have all these new coaches, it ratchets everything up a little bit, and everybody wants to be out there doing a phenomenal job.
So I know this was one of your Hey Mary Kays. Addition of Jamari Thrash, Jerry Jeudy. How do you see the receiver room shaping up, and who from last year's roster is kind of battling to, for a spot on the bubble, if you will?
Well, I think that the Browns still really think very, very highly of David Bell and Cedric Tillman. They're 2 third-round picks in each of the last 2 seasons. The player that I think might have a little bit of trouble making the team this year and is going to have to work extra hard is Michael Woods, because last year he sat out the year with the Achilles and then of course was suspended for the final 6 games of the season, but it didn't matter because he was out anyways. But he's someone that I think is really going to have to get himself back on the map, proving himself, showing that he deserves a spot on the roster. So hopefully he'll be able to do that. He's a really fine young man, but and a good receiver too. But just in terms of Ced and David, I still think that they feel very good about those guys, and they're going to try to keep as many of these receivers as they can. Also, largely because, as I mentioned before, more 3 wides, more 4 wides, and they're going to want to keep these guys fresh and rotate them in.
So the other thing, another Hey Mary Kay, and I'm curious, Zach Zinter, do you think he challenges for playing time? It was certainly good to see him out and moving around after the broken fibia and tibia, but do you think he challenges for playing time this season?
I think this will, in some respects, be a redshirt year for him unless somebody gets hurt. I don't think they really want to press him into service just yet. They've got their 2 All-Pro, Pro Bowl guards in Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, and I just don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. I think this is a learning year for Zach Zinter. It'll give him a chance to come back even stronger from that injury a little bit, and they'll work him at both guard positions, give him some center reps, and he'll be ready to go when the time comes. We all know how fast these seasons go. They just seem to keep coming at us in waves, and he'll be out there before people realize it.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about the Browns and how they've performed in the AFC North since 2020. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mina Kimes on ESPN's NFL Live, talking about the biggest question marks surrounding the Browns in 2024.
I wasn't surprised that they didn't bring back Joe Flacco, because his performance last season, I feel like, would have hung over this team if he had come back as the backup and Watson had struggled. But the memory of watching that offense have success, nevertheless, remains, especially, I imagine, for Kevin Stefanski, who it felt like with Joe Flacco was able to call exactly the sort of offense we expect from him, the sort of offense we saw in Minnesota. And when I watch Watson, when I've seen him, and obviously somewhat limited snaps or given his injuries in this offense, it has felt to me like the quarterback and the play caller, Stefanski, still aren't quite on the same page. Whereas with Flacco, it felt like, okay, this is exactly what he wants to do. And I think that's what I'll be curious to see early on. Yet another offseason. Have they developed the sort of chemistry required to put this team over the top? Because the team, as Kevin said, is extremely strong. Defense, skill players, offensive line, all of it. The quarterback remains the question mark.
Mary Kay, that's, my philosophy has been that's why they did what they did on offense. And it sounds like that's kind of what you had said earlier with Ken Dorsey.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of a moot point there, what she was talking about, because they have completely changed the offense. And the offense is geared to bring out the best in Deshaun Watson. So this is now going to be more a matter of Deshaun vibing with Ken Dorsey and that offense. And it is the same offense that, again, that Bill O'Brien ran for Deshaun Watson when he was head coach there. And Deshaun was the quarterback with the Texans, and he went to 3 Pro Bowls, and he was very, very successful in that scheme. So they're gearing everything towards Deshaun, and this is one huge way to do it. And we'll have to see how it goes. I mean, it could be a little bit of a work in progress in the beginning? Maybe not, but I do think that you have to get some timing down with your receivers. A lot of that is going to be new and the way that they do things. So it's just going to be a matter of putting the pieces all together, and we don't know how much Deshaun is going to be playing in the preseason. I mean, he might not play in any preseason games at all. So he's going to have to be able to hit the ground running against the Cowboys in Cleveland Browns Stadium on September 8th.
But this is the reason that you go out and you get a Deshaun Watson to do this, so that you can build an offense around him. That's why you get a quarterback with that skill set. I know you've talked about this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Where do you think the Browns rank in the AFC? How big of a factor is, Deshaun Watson's health in that as well?
It's huge because you can't really make too many predictions until you know exactly how he's going to come back from this. Now, everyone that I talk to that's sort of on the inside of this, they all expect that Deshaun Watson is going to come back and be just absolutely fine, and that the shoulder is not going to be a concern. But I don't think you can ever really make any promises about that. So I still think it is a little bit of a wait and see proposition and kind of see how it goes. Nobody thought last season that his shoulder was supposed to be an issue either, and it turned out to be one, and a very big one. So I think that has a lot to do with how this is going to go. I would say the Browns, I would rank them probably second in the AFC North right now overall as a football team, if Deshaun is as healthy as we expect him to be. And I would put them behind the Ravens just because, the Ravens, you have to give them their respect. And then, let's see how some of the changes in Cincinnati went and how Joe Burrow is coming off of his injury. But right now, I would probably put the Browns second.
So along those lines, this is since 2020. Browns in the AFC North, which has been the toughest division in football, 12-12. And you see 3-5 against the Ravens, 3-5 against the Steelers, which is a little bit of a head scratcher, 6-2 against the Bengals. And it just goes to prove there are some teams that match up really well against others, and when you see a team like the Bengals and the Steelers and the Ravens every year, the Browns seem to just match up against the Bengals, and for whatever reason, you look on paper, they should be able to they should have a better record against the Steelers, and for whatever reason, it hasn't translated.
Yeah, it is bizarre. Both of those things are absolutely bizarre. To see that they have the Bengals number, that they have Joe Burrow's number, it really is sort of mind-boggling. Even when he was going to AFC Championship games, there were the Browns just beating them like crazy all the time. It's hard to imagine. But like you said, it's a game of matchups, and that's how you build your team. In the AFC North, you really try. The Browns try to make sure that they are going to match up well against their opponents, and then you have to have an eye towards the playoffs too. So you have to know that you have to figure out what are you going to do with a Patrick Mahomes, and what are you going to be able to do with a Josh Allen and some of these other amazing quarterbacks in the AFC. But certainly, the Steelers thing is puzzling. It's because they have such a good defense year after year after year. But the thing about this record that you're mentioning here, most of it is not involving Deshaun Watson. So let's see how it goes over the next 3, 4, 5 years when Deshaun Watson is at the helm.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's the reason you go, again, the quarterback position is so, you look at it, you've got Lamar Jackson, you had Ben Roethlisberger forever with Pittsburgh, you have Joe Burrow. You better have a quarterback that you can give the ball to in the fourth quarter and say, go win the game. And they feel they have that in Deshaun Watson.
They do. And again, he hasn't played a full season since 2020, so he's got a lot to prove this year. But if he is that quarterback that put the team on his back in Baltimore last year, if he is that guy, then he's going to be tough to beat. And you just know that he's going to come back and try to be that player again and pick up where he left off with that sensational second half of that victory.
So I know, again, you've talked about this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Do you think Deshaun Watson will throw during OTAs or minicamp?
I do. I think that is the plan. I think that, once again, his surgeon wants him to be conservative, but that doesn't mean he's not going to do anything. I do think that he will throw. And, might not be a ton, but it will be enough to make sure that he's getting that timing down with his receivers, that he's getting the new offense installed and implemented the right way, and just gearing up for the season.
This one from PFF, Pro Football Focus. One last offseason move for every AFC team. For the Browns, they add a veteran linebacker. Jordan Hicks earned a 74.6 PFF grade last season. Should fit in perfectly. Devin Bush failed the top 60 in any of the past 4 seasons. With that in mind, bringing in someone in training camp for competition for Bush wouldn't be a bad idea. Again, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they like the Watson kid that they drafted. I would never say never. I'm with you, though. I think if they're going to do anything, they try to find another sack guy.
That's what I would do, but I don't know. Again, I don't really see that happening at this point. I think they feel, especially now with the additions of Quentin Jefferson and Mike Hall on the interior and getting that interior rush, that they're not too worried about the sack numbers per se. And hopefully for them, you know, Z was in a little bit of a sack slump for a while, and then Myles finished the season in a little bit of a sack slump. Again, the Browns downplay the sacks. But if those two guys can be consistent throughout the season, then they'll be right where they should be. And that interior help will also open things up for the outside guys.
Would a veteran tight end be something you look at? I know we expect more 3-wides, more 4-wides. Do you think they still look for, you know, football? Yeah, I hate to mention injury with anybody, but you know, if David Njoku gets banged up, you know, it's Jordan Akins and then an undrafted free agent. Is a veteran tight end something they look at?
You know, I think it is something that they probably could use. But they're kind of going the younger route a little bit. I think they're more or less willing to go with David and then with Jordan Akins, who's in the last year of his contract, and then one of the younger guys that was in rookie camp, Zayden Mitchell-Payton, and then they added a rookie free agent, and I can't remember his name right now, but they did sign a guy. I know I wrote about him yesterday, but it's just eluding me at this very second.
From Wyoming, yeah.
Yes, it's like Trayton Welch or something like that, but I didn't want to completely get it wrong. So yes, they do want another tight end on the roster, especially because Harrison Bryant left in free agency. I don't know if it will be one of those guys or if they will see what shakes out in those cuts and maybe add a veteran.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Great Browns coverage, pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report, straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Browns rookie minicamp wrapped up over the weekend. Zach Zinter talked about being back on the field for the first time since he broke the fibia and tibia in his leg in November against the Ohio State Buckeyes.
It felt great. I've been itching to get back out there on the field, you know what I mean? Going through the whole process and doing all that and not be able to, you know, compete and do anything. I mean, it felt great. That's what I've been working for my whole rehab, is get back out there.
Feeling pretty good this morning?
I did, yeah. No, I mean, obviously a little sore just being back out there, but I'm not as sore as I thought I was going to be. So, you know, that wasn't nice when I woke up.
I know Kevin was saying that, you know, just pretty basic stuff first off, communicate for you because it's been so long. What are some of the things you were really trying to hone in on to make sure you kind of get back there?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a minute, so just getting out there, knocking the rust back off. But I mean, it's fun, you know what I mean? Just learning the playbook, getting out there, moving around with the guys, you know, learning how the dudes are moving next to me, the communication, all that good stuff for sure.
Is that the most you've done since the injury yesterday?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been working up, doing my rehab and all that, but collectively, definitely the most I've done.
With that, let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, I know you wrote an article about Zinter. Take us through that, and how did he look to you? I was surprised that, you know, he was out there and ready to go.
Yeah, I think that more than anything was like, for all those guys, like orientation, but for him more so just to, like he said, knock the rust off, get on the field, and kind of get himself prepped so he can ramp up when the vets come into the OTAs. He said he was going to be here through all that. So as he kind of merges into the rest of the team, so he can be as close to ready to go, full go, you know, at training camp. And I think it's a good step. You know, anytime you come off a broken leg, I know I had a broken leg, and first time I got back on the field, you just had a little lack of confidence, and they didn't do a whole lot. They were just jogging around and kind of walking through and everything. But I just think putting the helmet on and being out there and going through all the drills was a big step for him, you know, so the closer he's ready to go when they're ready to put the pads on and start hitting. So, you know, I like him. I like what I saw of him. We didn't see him hit, obviously, but you got to like the pedigree. Captain of one of the best offensive lines in the nation, 6'6", 310. They got him in the 3rd round. I don't know how high he would have went if he didn't have a broken leg, because he missed all the off-season, you know, tryouts, pro days, combine, all that kind of stuff. They just really had his tape. They didn't have his tape in the national playoff or championship games this year. So, I mean, guards usually don't go that high anyway, but to get him in the 3rd round, you know, I think whenever he gets his chance, it's, you know, I think it's a type of player that you like on your roster.
Yeah, and, you know, he did make a point of saying he can't wait to have Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller in there, and I'm sure he's the type of guy that's going to soak up quite a bit from them. You also wrote an article about wide receiver Jamari Thrash. Take us through that and just your thoughts on what Thrash could do in this offense.
You know, it's 5th round pick, 5th straight year Andrew Berry's drafted a wide receiver. And so far he hasn't had a lot of success. Anthony Schwartz, 3rd rounder, David Bell, 3rd rounder, and last year Cedric Tillman, 3rd rounder. So, and Donovan Peoples-Jones might have been the most successful. He was a 6th round the first year he drafted. But Thrash, what I liked about him was he played at Georgia State, had eligibility left, and wanted to get into a pro-style offense. So he kind of upgraded and went to Louisville in the ACC, played in a pro-style offense with Jeff Brom, former NFL quarterback, I think. And, you know, and so he was productive. He had a good year, I think, you know, 60, 70 catches. He's known for being able to get open. He doesn't have the greatest speed, or doesn't have all the – that's why he went in the 5th round, and he's a little older. So I think he's a guy that could challenge David Bell, Cedric Tillman, if they don't bring anybody else, to be the 4th receiver, you know, to make the team as one of the top 5 guys. So, you know, all around, we didn't see a lot of him. I got a couple videos of him catching passes during the mini camp, and he looks smooth. He's smaller, but he did, you know, they were kind of going against Dare, so it's hard to judge, you know, anything about him as far as being able to separate. And that's really what he's known for. So we'll see when they get to mini camp, training camp, when the pads go on, will he be able to continue? But, you know, you throw him in the mix, you develop him, and you see what you have with him.
Yeah, and, you know, there's going to be an opportunity. You would expect them to throw the ball a little bit more than they have, and that will open up the opportunity for some of those wide receivers. All All right, another one that I'm curious about, Michael Hall. That's the guy everybody kind of wanted to see. I know, again, you wrote an article. He wants to make an impact in his rookie year. Take us through that article. What you saw from Hall, what jumped out about him when you looked at him going through the drills at minicamp?
Well, his quickness, you know, I'm not comparing or saying that he's going to have this type of career, but he reminds me of Michael Dean Perry. You know, Michael Dean Perry was drafted about the same area in the second round, and he was the same weight when he came out of Clemson. And obviously, he was a great player for the Browns. It's the quickness, and if Jim Schwartz, which I'm confident that he will use him the right way, I think what you're going to see is they're not going to have him as your traditional defensive tackle, you know, facing double teams against the run. I think if you pick your spots, when you have Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and Obo Okoronkwo on the outside, or even one on the inside pass rushing, the defense is going to have to pick who they're going to double team. And if they double team Myles Garrett or Smith, they're going to be able to pick and choose. And I think Hall might be able to get favorable matchup with a center or a guard. And I saw some film against him that he just ate him up. You know, obviously those were college guys, but at the NFL, your centers and the guards really still aren't, you know, the fleetest of foot. And his quickness off the ball is very apparent. You know, when you look at him, he just gets off really quick. So I think that Jim Schwartz will have a plan for him. I think they'll pick their spots. I think he will be in the pass rush scheme. I do not see him being in the base defense, you know, when they're trying to stop the run. In video and film of him, one of his weaknesses was going against the double teams and so forth because he's undersized, you know, at 280 or whatever. So it's his quickness and being able, you know, to use his long arms to, you know, to make moves and to get open.
I love the Michael Dean Perry comparison. And again, I get you're not saying that, but that is a guy that was that quick first step without question. All right, before we go to break, first chance to see some of the newer coaches, well, all of the newer coaches, kind of get on the field and work with guys. I know it's the rookies and some of the undrafted rookies. What were your reactions just to the new coaching staff? What jumped out about the guys that have now come in on both sides of the ball for the coaches for the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, Ken Dorsey, I looked at, you know, quickly to see what he was doing, and he was really kind of coaching all the other coaches, and he looked like he had kind of a hands-on approach. In fact, he only had one quarterback there, and he was on a trial basis, and so he even stepped in and was throwing passes, you know, former NFL quarterback, even here with the Browns, and so it's kind of interesting to see him throwing passes, but he looks like, to me, it looks like he's really going to be the guy implementing this offense that he has brought here. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up calling the plays. I think you could see Kevin Stefanski transition more to the CEO type. I'm just speculating at this point because we haven't got any word. But that's surely, you know, what I thought I saw is Dorsey coaching the other coaches. Andy Dickerson, the offensive line coach, obviously a little different than Bill Callahan, who you could hear all over the field. Got a chance to look at him. They had 4 offensive linemen he was working with, including Zach Zinter. So it's mostly just teaching at this point. Jacques Césaire, I think he's a defensive line coach. Saw him a little bit working with Michael Hall and some of the others. But I think Ken Dorsey is the one that I paid the most attention to because, to me, he's the one that is expected to have the biggest impact. They're implementing an offense that he's brought here, you know, from his past.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Now, I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about what we know as the Browns opener. It's against the Cowboys over at First Energy Stadium. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. money maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report. Former NFL offensive lineman Brian Baldinger. Some video analysis of Myles Garrett after finding out the Browns getting ready to play the Cowboys Week 1 in that opener, 4:25 in the national time slot.
We now know the Cowboys open up in Cleveland on Fox September 8th at 4:25. So Jim Schwartz has got this pressure. Here comes the safety Delpit off the edge, and here comes Myles Garrett, the reigning defensive player of the year, putting Kenny Pickett right on his picket. Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, is going to do this. He's going to isolate Myles Garrett on his tackle, whoever that's going to be in Dallas, by putting the defensive tackle inside. And now getting Myles Garrett outside one-on-one. And when he gets one-on-one, he has a lot of bad intentions. The ball comes out, they recover the ball. But he's also an equal opportunity. Like, you try to put that tight end there to try to slow him down, he's just going to swat it. And he's going to beat your right tackle, and he's going to get to the quarterback, and bad things can happen. A man full of bad intentions. The Cowboys have their hands full. Like right here, you're going to get him coming inside, and Arizona's going to triple team him. They're going to try to tackle him. But even when you do that, a man with bad intentions can get to your quarterback. There's no center in the league that wants to see this. Cowboys might have a new center, might be a rookie center. Myles Garrett could be dancing. And when he does, he's going to pick a side. Bam! Now your quarterback, Dak Prescott, presumably, got to move. Maybe somebody else finishes the job. Cowboys got their hands full in Cleveland on September 8th. The reigning defensive player of the year. You can guarantee be ready to play that one.
Fred, we do know, in fact, it's going to be, Browns-Cowboys Week 1, and a lot of the focus will be on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. Cowboys are a team that lost a lot on the offensive line, and also, other than Micah Parsons, on the defense. So it's the Cowboys, but there's an opportunity there for the Browns to go in and that's not a – Cowboys are struggling. They have some holes now.
Well, when you see that video he showed, obviously, he showed one side with Myles, but as you mentioned, Micah Parsons, he's going to go up against maybe Jedrick Wills or Jack Conklin, so they're going to have, kind of a equal opportunity on both sides there. But it also showed me, where when they line Myles over the center, see, that's what Michael Hall can do. And then you can move Myles around, but Michael Hall could be over the center, or he could also be outside. So, yeah, I think it's always a big game with the Cowboys. They used to be America's team. We don't know how much they still are, but coming in, Dak Prescott and the group. I think Ezekiel Elliott has returned to the Cowboys, and so I think it's a great opener for them at home, where they really were good last year, 8-1, and they opened with the Bengals and won the first game. It allows them to get off to a good start, but Cowboys had 12 wins, so they're going to probably come in and they're going to be trying to get off to a good start as well. So I like the matchup. Tom Brady's doing the game, his first game, so it'll be a lot of excitement, a lot of attention. This will be on the Browns and the defense. As you remember, their last showing in the playoffs, they got exposed, and I'm sure that's been sticking in the craw with Jim Schwartz and the defense. So it will be an interesting game. It's a great opener, I think, for them all the way around. Yeah,
and I would expect, take a look at this. This is from NFL. They tweet this out. Strength of schedule is based on 2023 opponents' win percentage. Browns have the toughest. 547 is what their opponent's win percentage was. It's not a surprise that it's 3 AFC North teams. Browns toughest, Ravens second toughest, Steelers third toughest. Remember, they got to play each other. Then you got, the Texans are the fourth toughest. I would expect, because of the matchups, the Browns will probably have a number of nationally televised games. That's You'll probably get one or two of them in the division. You might get, the Jets again. They're going to be they're going to be highly visible. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're another year away from the Deshaun Watson situation, and they're 11-6. Yeah, when you have 3 teams make the playoffs from the AFC North, you get a tougher schedule, and the Bengals, because of Joe Burrow's injury and them finishing out of the playoffs, they get the benefit of that. They have the easier schedule in the division, but as you said, 6 games in the division, that's really where the rubber meets the road. That can determine who wins the division, the AFC North. Your best path, quickest path to the playoffs is winning your division. So those are the most important games. But the rest of them, you look at the schedule, you're going to have a lot of premier quarterbacks here. Besides the guys in the division, like I said, Dak Prescott's on the schedule, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. You go even the top pick, I think Jaden Wilson from Commanders. And so it's always going to be tough. I will say this, though, Dave. We all play the schedule game. How many times by the time you get to the regular season, teams you thought were really going to be good are not very good, and vice versa? I thought last year Tennessee would be pretty good. They ended up being not very good, fired Mike Vrabel. And, and so it changes a lot when you get to the regular season. I didn't think last year Houston, with a rookie quarterback and all that, I thought that was pretty much a given win for the Browns. And, you see what happened in the playoffs and how they did. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough schedule. And it's all going to matter, what happens with number 4 and Deshaun Watson, how he plays. I think they can play well with any of them.
All right, this is interesting as well. So Grant Delpit last year among safeties with at least 700 snaps. Tied for 5th in quarterback pressures with 12, 5th in run stops, 33, 5th in average yards per reception allowed, 7.5, and zero touchdowns allowed. Remember, Delpit banged up at the end of the season, but a guy that he extended, he really had a breakout season, and I would expect more of the same because Jim Schwartz understands and has a plan for how he wants to use Grant Delpit.
Yeah, it's one of those, I think he's kind of a late bloomer. Same way with JOK. Was it because Jim Schwartz pushed the right buttons in the right schemes, or did the player just get it? He lost his first year with the torn Achilles, the ruptured Achilles, and then he kind of was coming on the year before, had injury, and then last year I thought he really stepped up. Same way with JOK. I think Jim Schwartz really has a scheme that allows these young players to be aggressive. I think the Browns, extended him, and I think he's really a building block on that defense. And I expect the same thing with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, coming right along on that side of the ball. That aggressive mindset, see ball, go get ball. So I think the Browns are in pretty good shape up the middle. Delpit's a guy that can play close to the ball, and and can blitz and do some of those things with his speed. So I think the Browns are building, with some young guys, and that's what you want, to be able to build depth. And ironically, when Thornhill got injured and Delpit were injured, you had a couple undrafted guys, Ronnie Hickman and DeAnthony Bell, who were able to show what they could do. And that really, bodes well. If you look at the roster right now, I think they're pretty set at safety. You got 5 with Rodney McLeod returning in addition to the starters. So, I think that's good all the way around. We all know injuries, but Delpit, he's right at the top of the list right there for the Browns, and I think that's a good thing as they go forward.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from a guy that many think is the steal of the draft that the Browns got in the 7th round. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back talking Browns with Fred Greetham. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Miles Harden, cornerback that the Browns took out of South Dakota, called by some the steal of the draft in the 7th round. Harden talked about being drafted to a team with so many Pro Bowl caliber cornerbacks.
I met Denzel yesterday. It was good. You know, Coach had brought him in the locker room to see me. It was good to see him and just talk to him. And hopefully, I'm gonna be under his wing soon.
What have these last couple of days been like for you walking in this building, and you're kind of getting a crash course not only in the National Football League, but what the Browns are going to be expecting?
It's been surreal. Like it still hasn't hit me yet that I'm in the NFL right now. It's just crazy that I'm here standing in this position that I'm in right now, and it's been surreal. So I'm just taking it in day by day and taking it day by day.
Kind of experience said that he thought that you might have a profile to play more nickel inside. Just curious how much you did that in college or high school.
I did it in college like the past 2 years. I started moving inside and playing inside, so I'm open to it.
What was like maybe the biggest point of adjustment in terms of going outside to inside?
I just feel like the biggest thing going inside is more room inside. You know, it's a two-way go rather than outside. You pretty much could send them one way. So I just say inside is two-way go. That's the biggest adjustment it'll be.
Fred, I know there wasn't a lot going on. A lot of people are, giddy that Harden was available in the 7th round. Surprised. The national guys thought he'd go 4th, 5th round.
Yeah, a couple years ago they took a guy in the 3rd round, Martin Emerson. Most of the media was scraping around trying to find something about him. I happen to have a draft guide, our lads, that had him in the 3rd round. Most of them projected him more of a 5th, 6th round. We all know that he might have been one of the best picks Andrew Berry has made. And Myles Harden, kind of excels or is known for being the slot guy. We know how important it is in the slot. Now, it's like pitchers. You can never have enough cornerbacks, especially in a defense with Jim Schwartz, who wants to press and cover man-to-man. You have your top 3 under contract: Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, Greg Newsome. Newsome, they picked up his option, so he's under contract this year and next year, but he isn't totally into being a slot corner. If this young guy, Myles Harden, can really excel and be a slot corner, that might really bode well for the future as you make decisions. You also have Cameron Mitchell. So just like Andrew Berry seems to draft offensive linemen and wide receivers every year, he also seems to draft cornerbacks because you always have injuries and you really can't have enough of them. So Harden, he's from Miami, but he went to South Dakota, kind of a long way in a different weather set, and he talked about that. But that could have had something. Sometimes when you're under the radar playing, maybe not the toughest schedule, you drop in your stock for whatever reason. And he talked about had his best game maybe against Missouri, SEC school, which isn't the top SEC football team. But, I think, the Browns are confident that they can develop him. And why not take a guy in the 7th round that has some good upside?
All right, before I let you go, 3 remaining questions for the Browns heading into the 2024 season. This is from Dog Pound Daily. Number 3, what are the remaining areas of concern? Number 2, they have, can the offensive tackles stay healthy? And number 1, will Deshaun Watson be good enough? Let's start with the areas of concern. Fred, this roster's, it's pretty solid. There isn't an area where you look at and you go, oh. I mean, if you want to nitpick, maybe backup tight end, second tight end.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for these rookies to make the roster. I mean, it's now getting to be a point where the practice squad is some of your best chances to get on the team, because with this new kickoff rule, I almost think that they're going to keep 2 returners, just because you're going to have 2 returners on the kicks, and it's kind of being forced to run the ball out, and you got to have one on each side. You could end up having one of your roster wide receivers back there or something like that. But when you look at it all the way around, you know, Jordan Akins is the backup tight end. He didn't do a lot last year. He had 15 catches, and he's more of a pass receiver. David Njoku, we all know, went to Pro Bowl, had a great year. But if he were to get injured or go down, you don't really have much there. So as you said, a backup tight end. They did not draft a tight end. They signed Trayton Welch. I wrote a little bit about him in a takeaway from the minicamp. You know, good size, pass catcher, could be a Harrison Bryant type guy. They also have Zaire Mitchell-Payton, who had been on the practice squad for a couple of years. But they're pretty thin, battling for a third tight end. So you could see if there are any veterans out there that are available, they could sign, or that could be a training camp trade, or when somebody's waived or released, they could pick up. Linebacker, again, you're a little thin there. You drafted somebody in the 6th round, but are you going to hand that to a rookie? A lot depends on what he does. Andrew Berry has signed veteran linebackers in training camp when they get a chance to look at them. Last year, defensive tackle, they brought in Shelby Harris, who turned out to be probably their best or second best defensive tackle, and he didn't come in until 2 weeks after training camp started. So I think they will look at what they have as they go into training camp and then adjust, you know, or after the mandatory mini camp here the first week or second week in June, see what they have and then evaluate bringing anybody else. But I don't see a lot of holes on the starting lineup. It's really backup roles, and most of these you have backups already. It's really even more depth behind the second team guys.
Let's skip ahead to, before I let you go, how good does Deshaun Watson have to be? I know everybody nationally has been kind of down on him. I think if he stays on the field, I think this team's going to be really, really good.
I agree, and I've been saying that. I'm not a homer with Deshaun Watson, but he just hadn't been on the field. When we've seen him on the field, he's always talked about having a slow start, and I looked at that, and that was true in Houston. And then he'd get better as the season went on. He got going, I thought, in that 3rd game last year against Tennessee. He ended up officially throwing for 289 and 2 touchdowns, but he would have had 329 and 3 if not an inadvertent whistle on a 40-yard touchdown that Amari Cooper had taken back. But then obviously he was hurt, so we spent the next month starting, stopping. Then he got going. He even mentioned that he felt like he might have got hurt in the Cardinal game, but he played against the Ravens. We all know he had a 14 for 14 second half, playing with a broken bone in his shoulder, and high ankle sprain, comeback win over the Ravens, and then he didn't play again. So you really couldn't evaluate him. If he can just stay on the field, you know, Dave, in looking back, the Browns have not had a 30 quarterback or a quarterback throw for 30 or more touchdowns since Brian Sipe did in 1981 or 1980 season when he was the MVP. And so I think Watson can have 30 touchdowns in this schedule if he just stays on the field. That's averaging not even 2 a game. I just think he has to stay on the field, and he has to learn to take care of his body and not maybe go head on up the middle and dive into 300-pounders. Maybe take a knee or run for the sideline, protect himself, and get the ball out. So I think that's got to be pounded into him with Ken Dorsey and so forth. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't expect him. He doesn't have to be elite for the Browns to get to the playoffs. They have a good enough roster. It was shown last year, nothing taken away from Joe Flacco, but he was dropped into the cockpit with a really good roster, even without Nick Chubb, and did quite well. You have to think Deshaun Watson has the skill set, the arm, more mobility than Joe Flacco on a long-term basis. So you just stay on the field and you'll get in your rhythm and get things going.
Fred Greetham, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
All right, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. Senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Before we go today, LeBron James showed up at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse last night for the Cavs-Celtics game and created quite a stir. Now, he was a guest of Dan Gilbert. His agent, Rich Paul, was with him. They let the Lakers know that LeBron was going to do that and show up for that game. But nothing LeBron does is unintentional. He can opt out of the final year of his contract with the Lakers in a few weeks and become a free agent. The thought nationally is that he will stay with the Lakers. You never know with LeBron, though. Again, the story was he was in town. He and his wife Savannah were in town to see their parents on Mother's Day. They decided they want to go see the Cavs playoff game while they were here. Something else to monitor. Bronny, LeBron's son, is going through workouts at the NBA Draft Combine right now. Reports are he's looked really good. The Cavs do have a pick in the 20s. Right now, Bronny James is not projected to be a first-round pick, but it is definitely something to monitor. And again, remember, LeBron James does not do anything that is unintentional without question. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.